Today, on Callout, Lions Bay and North Shore Rescue team up to longline a severely injured hiker off a steep rock face.
He had fallen probably about 45 meters, so a significant fall.
And later, Nelson Search and Rescue use high tech to find people buried by avalanche.
This is the point where they would open the door and deploy a marker of some kind.
Wednesday, 10:41 a.m. Lions Bay Search and Rescue was called out for a hiker who was fallen while climbing the West Lion, one of two very challenging and popular local mountains visible from downtown Vancouver. Frédéric Perrier, an experienced mountaineer from France, has tumbled backwards, smashing his way down a very steep, rocky ravine.
To be a very fast response, it's almost certainly a medical rescue. And number one job is, can we get a helicopter? Can we get paramedics?
Lions Bay contacts North Shore Rescue, who specialize in helicopter longline rescues in mountainous terrain.
When we get that kind of information, we just automatically alert our helicopter flight rescue team on the pager system, and then they call their availability in, because we are volunteers. So we have to get people in a position to be ready to go.
The SAR teams converge at the staging area, a sports field beside the Lions Bay Elementary School. While the plan is to access the subject by helicopter, ground personnel are standing by to hike in if necessary. Search and rescue operations demand that you always have a plan B.
My job was to coordinate the helicopter rescue and also mentor another coordinator in training, Mike Danks.
The helicopter takes off with trainee coordinator Mike Danks. They will do a reconnaissance of the lions and locate the injured hiker. On the way, selecting an emergency landing zone, as well as an alternate landing zone to the Lions Bay field, should bad weather or other problems occur during the rescue.
We made our way up to the lions, and as we made our way around the north side of the West Lion, we spotted the subject right away. He had fallen probably about 45 meters, so a significant fall. We made a call right then that this was going to be a HETS rescue. He would need to be HETS extricated.
And what's the next plan?
Come back to your location and rig.
They're going to do... Okay, copy.
We're calling now for the medevac chopper on what's called auto launch. So at the same time that's happening concurrently, Mike is now coming back to landing zone with his rescue plan. So he presents it to me and we agree to it, and then we go with the rescue plan.
What line do you want to use, Mike?
We'll be using a 150 and we're going to shut down the rig.
Now the situation is clear. The subject is seriously injured. He will be long-lined out of the ravine to the Lions Bay field, then transferred to an air ambulance and taken directly to the hospital. The team prepares the HETS line.
Okay, break 99. I'm going over the plan with the coordinator.
Longtime North Shore Rescue leader Tim Jones keeps an eye on Mike as he coordinates the mission. Like many SAR teams, North Shore Rescue's highly experienced older members are looking to pass the torch on to the younger ones. However, there is little room for error when it comes to a helicopter longline rescue.
Everything's one single point of attachment. So if anything goes wrong, it's catastrophic. There's no safeties. There's no backups. So everything you do has to be very directed towards risk analysis.
The person most responsible for planning the mission and making sure everything goes smoothly during the longline extraction is the HETS coordinator.
Hold on, he's got a screamer suit up there.
No, coordinator has to be someone who can get point A to B. He's seeing the bigger picture, but he's filtering out all the crap that comes with it, because everybody wants 30 seconds with him, and he's got to decide who he talks to, what he assesses. He's got to be thinking of objective hazards, subjective hazards, communication plans, the strategy of the mission, the equipment that's being used, all the emergency procedures that he has put in place. We talked about emergency LZs that you have to land on, over the water emergencies. He's thinking that in rapid succession without a checklist in his hand. Only certain people can do this.
All that and more is going through Mike's mind as he consults with Tim on the task at hand.
My relationship with Tim is he expects the best from me, and of course I want to do the best I can, but he's a very hard person to satisfy.
Mike's a busy guy with a family and full-time job as a fireman. He volunteers precious time for these missions.
I grew up with search and rescue. My dad was involved with the team, so I go out on training missions, and I'd be the subject that they'd be rescuing, and I'd always be hiking with them in the mountains, and it was a natural progression for me.
One of the biggest risks with this rescue is the weather.
I've been involved in a lot of calls up there where it's clear and the next minute you're being chased out by clouds, and I mean chased out. Like you've got seconds to get out.
The helicopter takes off, piloted by Peter Murray, owner of Talon Helicopters. Peter has flown countless rescue missions and is a huge asset to the team. On board are Lions Bay SAR members Dr. Doug Brown and Craig Oliver, and North Shore Rescue's A-level paramedic Miles Randall, as well as Curtis Jones, who will be on the end of the Hetz line with the injured hiker. The helicopter hovers over a ridge on the West Lion, allowing the rescue team to exit. They must hike up into the steep gully to reach Frederic.
He was in surprisingly good shape for how far he had fallen. He was talking to us, so we knew we had a good airway. We put him into a C-spine collar, checked that he was breathing okay, checked that he didn't have any major bleeding anywhere. We noticed right away his ankle was really broken. In fact, his bone was hanging out there. We got our first set of vitals on him, got an IV established, gave him a good shot of morphine and Gravol. We weren't able to get his bone back in place, but we were able to get circulation back into the foot. So we were able to stabilize the patient quite quickly and get him ready for transport.
Circling above the rescue scene, Mike Danks is coordinating the Hetz mission and also acting as spotter for the extraction. The less people in the helicopter, the more power and control it has in the thin mountain air. The rescue team calls in the helicopter. The Hetz line is attached, and Frederic and the Hetz technician are lifted into the air.
Lions B96 from 5-4.
Copy, and Talon inbound, 1 minute.
The helicopter reaches the staging area, where Frederic will be transferred to the awaiting air ambulance.
There's great satisfaction in finding someone alive. It's just a marvelous feeling to know that you can, by effort and planning and thought, sometimes beat Mother Nature.
I think it's great that he comes out alive. I'm just more interested in what Mike was up to tell you the honest truth. Because, you know, at the end of the day, he has to perform, right? He's not going to have me standing there, like being his mother, right? I'm not going to be there.
To be honest, I felt quite confident about it. I think it's good that Tim actually can let me do my job, per se. He trusts my judgment. I just need to be on more calls, running the calls. So that's very different for me. I'm used to being on the line, being the rescuer. I still want to be on the line, but I understand that I have to step back, so.
While it's a wrap-up for another successful mission for the Lions Bay and the North Shore search and rescue teams, it wasn't exactly what Frédéric Perrier and his good friend Vincent Tassion had in mind when they came to visit Canada for a month of sightseeing and hiking.
We wanted to see British Columbia because it's a nice place for the mountains. We wanted to go to the Lions for 2 days and after come back in Vancouver.
On the first day of their hike, Frédéric and Vincent took their time, enjoying the sights and camped overnight. While ascending the West Lion the next morning, trouble begins when the huge rock Frédéric was on starts to fall backwards.
The rock was as big as him, at least, because his feet and his hands were on the rock. And I saw this rock going down very, very slowly, and you cannot do anything.
Frédéric pushes himself away from the rock and falls backwards down the mountain.
And you just want to save your life, and I thought that my rucksack was huge, so I said I need to fall on my rucksack to absorb the shock.
Each moment of the fall, you want him to find a way to stop the fall. But the fall continue and continue and continue and never stop.
After tumbling and crashing down the rocky slope for 45 meters, Frédéric comes to a stop.
I start to look everywhere on my body, and I saw the bones of my ankle was outside of my ankle, so it was very painful.
Vincent cannot see Frederic in the ravine, but he can hear him.
After the first communication with him, he explained me that it was not necessary for me to come close to him because he was not bleeding. And the thing is, if I tried to come close to him, the risk was to send rocks on him. This was difficult at the moment because you want to check how he feels.
Cell phone reception is intermittent and not available in the spot where Vincent is able to speak to Frederic.
I was running all the time from the place where the network is on and the place where I can communicate with Frederic. I started many times the conversation, but the conversation failed. And that was really difficult to give all the information. Inside me, I was really panicked because I was aware that his life was depending on me at that time. When I saw that the helicopter came close to Frederic and saw him, I was really relieved. So I could feel like I have finished my job. The rescuers will do their job now.
They came, and after that I said, oof, I don't need to fight anymore. The rescuers are here and I'm okay.
Even with a broken ankle, 4 broken ribs, a severed nerve in his hand, bruised organs, and several lacerations, Frederic can consider himself lucky. He's very grateful to his good friend Vincent, and even more so to the Lions Bay and North Shore SAR teams for being there in his time of need.
I was very happy when I saw them, and I really thank them.
As Frederic returns home to France to fully recover from his injuries, the Lions Bay and North Shore rescue teams continue to hone their skills in preparation for the next call-out.
Learning from all the other guys on the team that have a lot of experience, I've watched what they do and I'm trying to take in the best part of each of those people. And I think in the end, if you can stay calm and just go with your experience and your knowledge, I think you're going to be successful.
I feel that he'll be ready in a year. He's been successful in all his calls, just doesn't have the volume. So once he's finished, then we're going to pick somebody else. And so myself and the other coordinator, by the time we're finished, by the time we're in our mid-50s, we're going to have 2 coordinators, we feel in their mid-30s, who will be taking over from us. That's our goal. That's our succession.
Now, Nelson SAR tests a high-tech search device that helps find people buried by avalanche.
Where they are right now is what as close as they could get to where a subject would be.
Saturday, 2 p.m. A search helicopter flies low over the ragged terrain of an 8-kilometer basin in the Kootenay mountain range. On board, a team of SAR members scans the mountainside while listening closely in their headsets for the telltale beep of an avalanche beacon. Somewhere beneath this immense sheet of snow, there's a snowboarder carrying a piece of hardware that just might save his life. This scenario repeats itself often in the rugged mountains of British Columbia. Search and rescue teams have to be ready and well-equipped. A group of SAR members from across BC is gathered at the Nelson Fire Hall. They're training to use a high-tech search device, the BerryVox, a helicopter-mounted transceiver unit that detects avalanche beacons from the air. By the end of today, they'll have a feel for the meticulous way this device is used.
So what we're doing here today is we're evaluating a new avalanche rescue technology that dramatically reduces the risk to rescuers from responding to avalanches. And we're going to see if this type of equipment is going to be something that we're going to implement as a standard practice in other areas of the province.
British Columbia has more avalanche accidents than the rest of the country combined. Finding people buried in the snow is a race against time.
We are trying to get faster and faster as, a buried victim without air. Time is of the essence. So this latest, greatest, faster technique could pan out to save lives for sure.
When you're caught in an avalanche, you're a needle in an enormous haystack. If you're carrying a beacon, your chances are greatly improved. Right now, ground search teams carry transceivers to locate an avalanche victim's beacon signal, but it's slow work. And helicopters are only able to visually scan the avalanche aftermath.
There's a number of times that we've used transceivers for searching for buried avalanche victims. It's another method. Dogs are of use, and of course probe lines and physically probing the snow is of value. This hopefully will be a faster method to affect the rescue of a buried avalanche victim.
The BuryVox unit adds the speed and versatility of a helicopter to the radio capabilities of a transceiver. It transmits a beeping noise to the helicopter crew's headsets when it locates a missing person's beacon. As they get closer to a beacon, the beeping gets louder. Sounds pretty straightforward, but there's a lot of nuance to it. That's why the designer of the device has flown in from Switzerland to train these SAR members.
This is a training device. I can activate by radio the search targets in the field, and that allows the training to be much more efficient. While I'm sitting in the cockpit, I can change to different search scenarios, so it's a very versatile training tool.
After spending the morning going through the BuryVox theory with Manuel, the teams now begin practical testing, using the device on the ground first.
As soon as it becomes weaker, you make a 90-degree turn.
Started off almost a bluebird morning, and we've turned into a bit of a squall here with some snow. So our main plan was to go to altitude and actually work this tool in the environment that we'd be using it in, but got to do it with what Mother Nature deals you out, eh?
The BuryVox system requires a grid search. The helicopter makes full passes 150 meters apart over the avalanche site until a signal is heard. When the signal begins to weaken, they make a 90-degree turn and continue. The signal will pick up. This is repeated until they pinpoint where the signal is strongest. Then, a marker is dropped for the ground crew to pick up the search. The weather is going to limit the exercise to the Nelson airstrip.
So now we've done most of our field work here. We're actually going to get airborne and start doing some search patterns with some of our trainees here and actually look for subjects. What we're using is these little portable systems. There's actually about 8 of them.
These cases contain beacons that can be remotely activated by Manuel. They're placed along the grid pattern for the trainees to discover in this exercise. A crew consisting of the pilot, Manuel, and 2 trainees takes off. The BuryVox system picks up beacons within 150 meters, so the search requires a tremendous amount of concentration from the search team and especially the pilot. Manuel sets off a beacon. The crew actively listens for the beep. They hear it. They have to stay off the radio so they can continue to monitor the beacon. A search member will give the pilot directions using only hand signals. It takes a bit of getting used to. They continue until the beeping gets weaker, then go back. They re-establish the signal and maneuver the helicopter until they are directly above the beacon. The helicopter is a perfect tool because it can go forward, backward, and turn on its axis.
Where they are right now is what as close as they could get to where a subject would be. This is the point where they would open the door and deploy a marker of some kind so that ground crews could come to that location and actually do a recovery or do the digging and see what they find.
The next team goes up. The pilot is getting more comfortable with the operation. Each team that goes up finds the beacon faster than the team before. The light is fading, and everyone has completed training.
The pilot as well as the rescuers became better and better at understanding what this search device can do for them and how they have to properly apply it. And this is, in the end, what makes the survival chances of the buried person higher, because instead of having to do 1 hour or half an hour terrestrial search, you make the same in 2 minutes with the helicopter.
New technologies like the BuryVox are saving lives. Victims are found faster, and search crews can work more safely.
everybody got a good real bit of experience on it, and the pilot came around really well with it too.
It just seemed like that.
Just need to get into altitude now into the train and use it in a real situation.
Indeed, a real avalanche situation with search teams somewhere up above, listening. Callout Search and Rescue features real stories filmed live by search and rescue teams during actual missions. Find out more at calloutsar.tv.